Hello. Hello.
Hey, hi everyone. We'll be starting in a couple of minutes from now. There are more people joining, so waiting for them to join. So, as a part of today's discussion, we'll be talking about the Uber design. So, maybe if you want, some of you can start listing down all the tables, all the requirements. You can start listing down those things. Then we'll start with the Uber design. Let me start sharing my screen. Okay, cool. So let's start with the Uber design today. Okay, cool. So let's talk about Uber design. So can anyone tell me what are the different requirements you'll take as a part of the Uber design? Let's start with the functional requirements. Let's start with the functional requirements. Okay. Any one of you? Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with the some of the basic requirements which we need to consider as a part of the Uber design. So see, there are two parts of this application, right? One is the on the rider side and one is on the driver side. So let's start with the rider, correct? So in for rider, what all things you want. So the rider should be able to book a ride by
Voice is
entering the location. Just give me a second.
Prakhar, your voice is breaking.
Bad connectivity. Give me a minute. Is it better now by any chance?
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing which rider want to do is book a ride, enter the location, the source and the destination, correct? Both. What else? They should be able to find the nearmost arrivals. The request. Should be sent to the nearmost drivers. Correct. Let's check on the driver side, rider side. Sorry, driver side as well. So for the drivers available, I should say available drivers maybe. Should be able to accept the request, get notified, and accept the request from the rider. They should be able to see the current location, be able to see the source location of the rider. The rider should be able to see the real-time location of the driver. Correct. What else do we want apart from this? Then once the driver has reached, then driver should be able to start a ride. Starts a ride. ETA should be shown. Here also ETA should be shown to the rider. What else do we want? Once we're done with this, the ride will be completed. Correct. The ride will be completed, and then you can say that rider should be able to make payment, add ratings, and check ride histories. For the driver should be able to accept, receive payment, end ride, and accept. Accept payment is nothing but they'll receive it. So end ride, and also should be able to add ratings for the rider, and they should also be able to check ride history. So these are the functional requirements for our Uber design. Now let's talk about some of the non-functional requirements. So what are the non-functional requirements? Any one of you? Please go ahead. Okay, let's see what are so can see driver reviews, also share feedback, cancel rides. Cancel rides, yeah, we can say cancel ride is another functionality which we want. Rest of the ones are I've already considered. Non-functional, or they can also cancel the ride, right? Okay, let's consider the non-functional requirements. So let's talk about availability, consistency, latency. Okay, I want all of you to think about these three. I'll give you maybe a minute to think about all these three functionalities, and then I want every one of you to comment like which one would you prefer, and what should be the latency. Like, would you prefer availability and consistency? In which cases you will prefer consistency? In which cases you will prefer availability? Also, what should be the latency of the system? Think about it quickly, and please mention your answer on the chat. Okay. So we have figured out that we need availability, consistency, and latency. So for availability, we need the system should be highly available. Correct? Even if it is, okay, this is required. Consistency, I mean, see, while booking cab, we need consistency. Basically, only one driver should be assigned to one rider. After, apart from, should be assigned. After booking, it's okay even if we don't get a real time location. We don't get a real time location. Even if we get real time location or location slash estimations with some delays. Here we are saying few seconds of delays, not more than that. Okay. And system should be available for the availability. We need system should be highly available. Correct. And in case of, I mean, only we'll prefer consistency only when we are booking the cab. Latency is as low as possible. Correct. So these are our non-functional requirements. We can say that we are preferring consistency over the availability when we are booking the cab. Apart from that, we are preferring the availability over the consistency. So these are our functional and non-functional requirements. Correct. Now let's move on to the estimations. So we figured out all the functional and non-functional requirements. Now we have to move to the estimations. So
Prakhar,
yeah.
I have a question. Sorry. Can I ask it?
Sorry, there is a lot of background noise from your side. Tell me.
Am I audible now properly?
Yeah, tell me.
Should we consider the? Can you scroll it down?
Sorry.
Can you scroll down? I mean, sure.
Yes.
Here in consistency, should we consider consistency in case of all the requirements, or it should be for the few requirements only?
I mentioned,
Or-
right, while only booking the cab, you need a consistency, otherwise you'll prefer availability. The system should be highly available. You'll prefer availability over the consistency.
But while canceling the cab and payment, we should also.
Payment, we have kept it like an out of scope thing, but I mean, I've mentioned payment here. Yeah, payment should be consistent as well. See, mainly when we design the features, right? We are
Yes.
designing here. Can you please go on mute because there is a lot of background noise from your side. Yeah, so yeah, definitely. Like payment is something which should be consistent as well as canceling the ride. It's in a way consistent only, right? Because you are saying that you want to cancel a ride, you will always connect to the same server. So you are saying that I want to cancel this particular ride. If it will be canceled, it will be canceled. See, even if you get a notification of canceling a ride after a second or so, that should be fine. And you are booking the cab from one single device. And once, let me go back to the design, and then you'll understand why automatically the consistency provided will be provided by the system, because here we'll use, yeah, I don't want to give you a solution, but don't worry about canceling the ride. That will be taken care in terms of consistency. And yes, payments should always be consistent. You'll always prefer consistent payments. We won't go into the details of the payments here. We'll keep payments as one of the options. We'll just design a payment API, but you're correct. There should be payment should also be consistent. So if you want, I can mention exclusively that, we need consistency also for canceling the ride and for payments. Consistency should be preferred. That's correct. So these are our non-functional requirements. Okay. Now because you have figured out all the functional and non-functional requirements, we'll have to move on to the estimations. Correct. So let's do some estimations. So I'm giving you some numbers, and based on those numbers, you have to make the assumptions. Sorry, I'm giving you some assumptions, and based on those assumptions, you need to come up with the numbers as we always do. So let's make some assumptions. So can we say that, let's say that we have around 100 million, or let's say that 500 million total users on the platform. We have 100 million drivers on the platform. We are saying 200 million daily active users. We are saying almost 50 million daily active, 200 million this, and let's say 80 million or 75 million, 70 million daily active drivers. Okay, and we can say that each user on an average books 2 rides per day. I'm sorry. So these are some of the assumptions. Now I want all of you to work on capacity planning for next 1 year. Let's work on this one now. You need to figure out all the tables first to go to the estimations. So what are the different tables you want to do the capacity planning? So you can clearly see that the main tables are, let's talk about only the main tables, and we'll do the capacity planning only for those main tables. Otherwise, we'll ignore the other tables. So the important ones are your user table. So the important ones are user table, ride table, correct, and driver table. There will be other ones as well, like ratings and all those kinds of different tables, like rating, and you'll have payment table, etc. So let's work on these three for the estimations, because that will take most of your space. So let's talk about this, and if required, we can talk about the other two as well. So I'll give you maybe 3 to 4 minutes to work on these estimations. And so we have driver, rider, let's call it as rider, and ride table, and then payments and rating you can. Correct. We don't need a booking table. That's a ride itself, right? That's a ride itself. Booking is a ride. So we have 3 tables: driver, rider, and ride table. I want all of you to work on it, figure out all the fields for it, assign how many bytes will require to store one single row of data in these tables, and then let's do a capacity planning for next 1 year. Okay. I'll give you exact 5 minutes to complete all these things. Let's do it quickly. I want all of you to work on this. In the meantime, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask questions.
So, Prakhar, I have a question. Hello?
Yes, tell me.
Okay. So when user is requesting for a ride, how do we send notifications to only those drivers that are within certain proximity?
So we haven't come on to that, right? We'll talk about it later on. Let's figure out the basic details first and then we'll go into that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Can anyone answer to all the questions which I've asked? Did you figure out, do you need more time? Are you figuring out the details? Anyone who is still working on the solution?
Yeah, a couple more minutes, please.
Okay, sure. Yeah, please, I want everyone to work on the solutions because, then only you'll be able to understand where you're making the mistakes. Cool. Anyone else?
Recording is progress.
Sorry, there is some echo from your side, whoever actually unmuted. Okay, let's work on the solution. So let's start with the rider. So in case of rider, what all things we'll have? So we'll have rider ID, we'll have name, we'll have password. No, we don't need a password. We can say that there can be account table. Let's work on this in a different way this time. So let's say there is an account table. The account can be for a driver as well as for a rider, right? So we'll have account table. You can have account ID. We'll have username and we'll have password. Now we'll have a rider ID, name, account ID. This is a foreign key. This is my primary key. What else do you want to store? So we'll have rider name, creation timestamp, basically at what time the rider is registered and on our platform. We'll have some basic rider information. It can be phone number or rider phone number, email address, phone number, email address, email will have default, or we can say address. Simple. Okay, this is our riders. These are the rider details which you want to store. Now, what are details you want to store for the driver? So we can say there will be a driver ID, which will be our primary key. You can have an image URL as well. That can be an optional, right? We'll have a driver ID. We'll have driver name. Okay, we'll have account ID because there will be account for driver as well, which will be our foreign key. Correct. We'll have name. Then we'll
So
have
the common fields can go into the account table, right? Like the name, email, phone address, because they're going to be
no. So they are common things, but this is used for the login purpose. I understand what you're trying to say. Like there are some common fields which you can move to your account table, but the way we will store the account table will be different from the way this will be more secure, right? This will be stored in the more secure way, and that's why I don't want to merge these two tables at all. It's very specific to driver and rider. I know that some of the fields are same, but see, at the end of the day, these are tables, right? So, I mean, if you want to get the rider details, you can directly get it from here itself. I have to go to the account table and then fetch the data. You'll have to unnecessarily perform the join between this table and this table for that. This account will be used only for the login purpose. Correct. So we can say that this will be used for the login purpose. Okay. And that's why I want to keep it as separate. And this will be my one-way hash. Whatever you are saying is also correct, but you have to Okay. From when I'm not audible, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that I'm not audible.
I think when we were talking about that splitting of the tables, right? So you mentioned that you wanted to kind of keep the account table only for login purpose. I think right after that, we lost you.
I see. Okay, let's repeat. Let's repeat it again. So basically, the reason why I want to keep it separate, because I mean, if we want to fetch the details about the rider, then we'll have to join it on the base of account ID, correct? And shifting these fields in the account table is not adding any value because the space will be same. If you're talking in terms of the classes, when we are transferring the data over the wire from the storage to, am I audible now?
Yes.
So when we are transferring the data from storage to your backend or backend to front end, then we can merge some of these fields that can be a part of the common class. But it's more clean here, and it's better to keep it separate because we don't want to perform the joins unnecessarily between these tables. Okay, so that's why I'm storing these information separately. So in case of rider, I'm storing these information. In case of driver, I'm storing name. We can have email. We can have their phone number. Correct. The cab details. So we'll have cab number, cab type. What is the cab type? There can be multiple cab types, right? It can be sedan, can be hatchback, it can be premium car, correct? It can be SUV, whatever. Like these are the different cab types, and then we have cab details, and then we have the creation timestamp, the timestamp at which the driver has actually, started, sorry, came onto the platform. And then we are capturing the details about the ride. So we have ride ID, rider ID, driver ID, ride timestamp, start timestamp, duration, ride source, ride destination, ride status, whether it's booked, in progress, completed, and cancelled. If it is cancelled, then ride state, start time, duration, and these both fields will be empty. So these are the main tables which we are considering as a part of our, Uber design. Now, how much space rider will take? Like we are storing image URL, we can have image URL here as well, because you can put the images of the car or you can put the images of the driver. So we'll have the image URL. So can we say that because there is some image present, it's around not even MBs. I'm taking it's not even a complete image. It's like a thumbnail. So can we say 2 KB of data here? Same thing, 2 KB of data here. And for a ride as well, we'll store some information. Let's say this will take around 1 KB. We can store a bunch of other information, like there can be maps and some images. So approximately 1 KB of data here. Let's put 1 KB for each of this.
Sir, I have a question regarding this account table. Shouldn't we keep a separate account table for rider and the driver? Because
why do we need to keep a separate table?
But say, for example, if we want to add additional facilities, such as some riders may have a premium account or something. If those kind of things needs to be added, then wouldn't it be
easier to do it at the account level? Yeah, that's correct. So see, there are other things, right? I mean, why don't consider that account as an actual account. Consider it as a simple account which is used for the login purpose. You're saying that we have a premium account, so you can mark that premium if the rider is premium or not in the rider table itself. I'm creating the account table just only for the login purpose, nothing else. If you want, you can shift username and password in the rider table and the driver table as well. But it's just that you'll have to, store the password in the one-way hash format. You have to keep, you'll have to have more. Generally you have more authentication authorizations and, more stricted groups who have access to those tables. And that's why it's easier to actually maintain a separate account table. You can still, whatever information you're talking about, you can still maintain that as a part of the rider table, where you can say that whether this rider is a premium rider or they are, a normal rider. So you can still maintain those details as a part of the rider table. There is no one is stopping you from maintaining that. Now, why I'm trying to understand, why do you want to create a separate account table? See, account ID can be same, username, password can be same for the driver as well as for the rider, depending on from where they are logging. Correct? The account name and password can still be same. They can act as a driver, they can act as a rider. No one is stopping them from actually using the same username and password across both the applications. But it would, I would say it's preferred to actually use the same account because they can log in, and if they want to take an actions as a driver, they should be able to take the actions as a driver. If they want to take actions as a rider, they should be able to take the actions as a driver. Did you understand what I'm trying to say?
Got it, Prakhar. One more thing, while we are riding, okay, there might be some cabs where we are sharing, okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that facility we haven't considered. So
yeah. We
shouldn't
haven't
we?
considered that. So see, I'll tell you one thing. I think, as you mentioned, right, is one of the recent classes which you have joined.
Yeah.
See, generally when we design something, we don't take like a lot of requirements because we want to make sure that we cover most of these details within 45 minutes to 1 hour. If we keep
Understood.
increasing our, if we keep
Scope.
increasing our,
Scope.
sorry,
You're saying you're talking about scope of the requirements, right? And
exactly.
got it.
So if we take like so many requirements, then we won't be able to cover everything in 45 minutes to 1 hour. You can consider, that as another requirement, and based on that, you can work on it. In that case, your ride table will change a bit. Nothing else will change here. Correct. You can still have the right table, or you can have a share. We'll create a separate table where you will have a foreign key. You can say that share right details, and then you will move some of the fields which are part of the right table to that share right. I mean, based on the type. But because we have limited requirements and we have bunch of things to cover in Uber design, we can't design everything. Like Uber is a very big application. It took years for them to design. We can't design all the requirements within 2 hours or 1 hour. So, correct? So we take limited requirements, the important ones, and we work on those requirements. But yeah, I mean, if you have any follow-up questions, like in the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you can ask me follow-up questions, and I'll try to answer how exactly you can, extend your current design to extend the other functionalities which you want as a part of your current design. Okay,
Got it, Prakhar. Thanks.
cool. Let's move on to the next part. So we have figured out the account, the rider, the driver, and the ride table, and we have given 1 KBs to each of these. Correct. Now, because you have figured out these requirements, these, the space each row will take for each, for each of these tables, you can do the capacity planning for next 1 year. So we are saying that how many riders do we have? 500 million riders we have. Let's say that 20% of the riders will increase over the time. So we can say 100 million plus 100, 500 million plus 100 million. This is the increase next 1 year, correct? We'll say that these are the total number of users into 1 KB. Plus, what else do we have? So we have drivers. So we have 200 million drivers. Considering 20%, hike or 25% hike, we have 50 million users in next drivers in next 1 year into 1 KB, correct? Plus, what else we have? How many rides are we having on a daily basis? So we are seeing that we have 100 million, 200 million daily active users, 2 rides, correct? So we can say that the number of rides on an average will remain more or less same. You can say that 200 million into 2.5 if you want to do it, scale over the year. But let's keep it 2 for now. 2 rides. I'm not increasing that percentage into 1 KB. So this is our total into 400, right? Because this will be into 365. Because this is for 1 year, right? So the number of users are not changing, but these are the rides per day. If I'll do the calculation, this will become what? 600 million into 1 KB. So we can say that this is 600 million into 1 KB. So a million is what? Million is 10 to the power 6. So this will become MBGB. So can we say 600 GB plus? This is what? 250 million.
Actually, that should be 100, right? That's 100 million active users on the platform.
No, these are total users, right?
Well,
They're
the second one, the second line that you're looking at, 200 million plus 50. Is that for the drivers or?
Yeah. This is for the total rides I'm seeing, right? So there are 200 million daily active users, correct? So each user on an average book 2 rides per day. 200 million into 2 rides per day, right? The total number of rides will be 200 million into 400 million rides per day, right?
That's right. I was referring to the second line item there, wherein you got 200
Here?
million plus 50 million. Yeah, that one.
Oh, that should be 100 million. My bad. Okay. So we can say 25%. So we can say 25 million. So this will become 120. That's correct. So 600 million plus this will become 125 million into 1 KB. So this will become 125 GB of data. Plus, let's see this data. So this is 400 million into 1 KB into 400. So can we say that 400, 1600, 1600 and 200 GB of data, correct? Because there are 4 into 4 is 1600. I've approximated this to 400, and then there are 2 zeros, so that, and because this is KB, this is a million, so this will become what? A million will become GB. So this is 100, 1600. So 2 into 2 is 4, into 4 is 16, 1600 into 100 GB. So if we remove 3 zeros from here, this will become 160 TB of data. Comes out to be approximately, can we say that this is approximately, I mean, it's 160 TB only because this negligible, but let's consider around 200 GB of data, because you're doing the approximation. 200 TB of data without replication in next 1 year. Okay, I'll stop here, and if you have any questions, then please ask. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next part.
Prakhar, I have a question on second line. Why it is 100 million plus 25 million? 100 million, I understand there are 100 million drivers on the platform.
Yeah,
25.
yeah, so we are considering that 25% of the total users, total drivers will, I mean, the number of drivers will increase over the time in next 1 year. That's why we are considering 25 million more users in next 1 year. Is that clear?
Got it.
Okay, cool. So let's move on to the next part. So we are done with the capacity planning. Quickly, let's write down the tables of the ratings as well, so we can have what we have a rating ID of which, I mean, whether it's a rating for the driver or the rider, we want to consider that as well. So rating type, or we can say that, you know, rating ID, rating type, whether it's for the driver or for the rider. And then we'll have rating ID, rating type, what is the rating, rating stars. And if there are any reviews, so we'll have review. And I think that's it. This is the information, or definitely we need to have a ID, right? So identifier ID. So we can say user ID, and the user can be either it can be a driver or the rider. So these are all the ratings which are capturing as a part of this. And in the payments table, we'll have payment ID, payment type, correct? We'll have payment details, payment status. We can also capture the right, we have to capture the right ID for which this payment is made, correct? So this is my foreign key. These are the basic information we can store as a part of the payment table. So the main 3 tables are the driver table, ride table, and the rider table. So these are our tables. So we are done with the estimations. Now let's work. No, we are not done with. We are just done with the capacity planning. We'll work on the.
Prakhar, one question regarding this 70 million daily active drivers. So we haven't used that anywhere in our calculations.
We didn't require it during the capacity planning, right? How? I mean, see, if there are on an average, if each user is booking 2 rides, then there will be 400 million rides, which will be distributed across 70 million drivers. So on an average, you can say that each driver will have 5 or 5.5 rides per day, correct? So I mean, that's we didn't require it. You can say that instead of, see here we are saying that each user on an average will book 2 rides because you have taken this as a requirement. That's why we are using this information. You can see that on an average, each driver will have 6 rides per day. Then you can use that information to do the calculations. So it depends on your assumptions which you're taking. Okay. And we'll use it. We'll use it when we'll do the QPS planning. Not necessarily we have to use it when we are doing the capacity plan, because these are daily active numbers, right? This will be more useful when we'll do the QPS plan. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Thank
let's work on the QPS. So let's figure out all the basic APIs which we'll need for this table, this particular design. So we have worked on the tables. Let's work on the APIs now. Let's work on the APIs. I want all of you to think about the different APIs which will require for this particular, yeah. So we've worked on tables. Let's work on the APIs. What are the different APIs we'll need for this? Let's quickly do it because we have to discuss the main design, and there are some of the requirements like how do we predict the ATA, how exactly we are sending the live locations of the driver. Let's quickly write. I'll give you maybe 5 minutes again to figure out all the APIs and do the QPS planning for the read QPS as well as for the write QPS. Figure out all the APIs quickly. And I would request all of you to work on it. Okay, let's talk about it. So I can see like bunch of people have made progress. So yeah, so let's start with, so there are some account registration, login APIs, which everyone has mentioned. Uh, there are some booking related, cancellation related, registry related, rating, driver accept request. Okay, let's see. So let's start with working on the APIs. So what are the basic APIs which we'll need? So let's start with, so we'll definitely need login API for both driver and rider. We'll need a registration API for both driver and rider. So login API, registration API, then we'll need book ride. So let's talk about the rider related APIs first. What are the rider related APIs? Okay.
Right. I think.
Yeah. So book ride is the first one.
Yeah.
What else?
Show driver ETA.
Yeah, so we can say that so book ride, that is the first one. Then get driver's ETA. Correct. What else do we need? So book ride, get driver's ETA. What else?
Ride history.
Track ride.
Real-time
Fetch-
location. Real-time
Fetch
location.
ride history. Yeah, let's see. Fetch ride history. So see, now basically what happens once we book the ride, after that, what we'll do is we'll actually have a WebSocket connection here. Why do we need a WebSocket connection? Because we need to keep fetching the data, right? We need to keep fetching the data at the driver's location. So we can say that there will be a WebSocket connection. Why do we need a WebSocket connection? We have discussed that, right? Because we need to keep fetching the data, and in the WebSocket connection, there can be message types. What will be those message types? The first one can be your, get location, get driver's location, correct? And ETA. This will be my first one. What else? Update, get, source, destination ETA. This will be my another API. These are the different two message types which we'll really need once the ride is started.
The real-time location also.
Yeah, destination ETA. I mean, that will give you the real-time location as well as the destination ETA, right? Because then only you'll get the destination ETA, because it is tracking your real-time location. It will transfer all those information. Okay. Now, once you're done with this, then you need a book ride, fetch ride history. What else you need?
Cancel ride.
Make payment, cancel ride. What else do we need? Make payment, cancel ride, add rating. These are the basic APIs which we'll need, correct?
Show the ride history also. That's what.
Yeah, fetch ride history, we have already added that. Okay, this is on the driver side. Sorry, rider side. What are the APIs you'll need from the driver side? Accept ride request, correct? Or we can say that fetch ride requests. The first one will be fetch ride request. Now see, when the driver is connected, driver needs to keep sending their live locations, right? Because then only we will get the request, will know the nearby location. So can we see that whenever the driver will actually come onto the platform, there will be a WebSocket connection created?
Yeah.
And what all information will be shared for the so what are the different message types? Driver current location. Then they can rides, fetch requests, or request details, or ride requests. This can be another message. Then accept ride. This can be another message. Then start ride is just a notification. It will take just start ride, end ride. What else? Share live location. Okay, we have driver current location, so that will get destination ETA. now when driver is going from one point from their current location to the source point, we can use the same message type for that as well, right? So this is the WebSocket connection. Apart from that, what else we need? Which won't be on the WebSocket. So once the ride is ended, can we say that driver can actually, add rating? They can make payment. No, not add rating, and cancel ride also. They can do the cancel ride as well, right? This for that we don't need a WebSocket connection. That's it. So these are the APIs which you'll need on the driver side. Is there anything else which I'm missing? Let's quickly check book ride, show ETA, show real-time location, cancel ride, show ride history. Yeah, for the driver as well, we need show ride history, right?
Yeah.
Fetch ride history. Correct. So these are the different information. These are the different APIs which you'll need for the driver and rider. Am I missing anything? No, I think this is good enough. Now let's move on to the estimations quickly. Correct.
I have a question.
Yes, tell me.
Shouldn't be the cancel ride be part of WebSocket? Because
You don't need to. You don't need to. Why?
It will impact the until unless you already accept one ride, and then you later figure out that you were not able to make it through. Then you will cancel ride, and then you will be able to accept the other rides, right? Which is around.
No, so I'm not closing the WebSocket connection, right? This is still open. I'm not closing it. It's just that I'm canceling the current ride. It's a HTTP request. This is a WebSocket connection. This I'm not closing. You can keep on receiving the request and you can still get the ride request. The backend will handle whether to send the request to the driver or not. The ride request to the driver or not. Why do we need cancel ride in the WebSocket? I mean, it's unnecessary, right? You can do it if you want to, but you can have a separate API to cancel the ride. Okay, either way is fine actually. Either way is fine because you have the WebSocket connection. You can use the WebSocket connection as well to cancel the ride. If you don't have the WebSocket connection, then you can simply cancel the ride outside the WebSocket connection as
well. So I thought that WebSocket connection should be. I mean, the backend should be able to know that you already canceled the ride. So and then it will allocate you the other ride, right? I mean,
yeah, that can happen, right? Because we have the driver ID, right? So we know that when we'll cancel the ride, the driver availability will change.
Got it.
So based on the backend can decide whether to send the ride request or not, based on the driver availability.
Understood.
Are you getting my?
Got
okay. Now let's quickly decide the number of requests we'll send. So see, login registration, those will be negligible, right? Because once you're on the app, you will keep it logged in. Registration is also negligible, so I'm ignoring that. Mostly the rider, book ride will be the APIs which will be used most of the times. So can we see that how many requests are we getting for the, login? So can we say that, sorry, booking ride. So we are saying that on an average, you are receiving how many requests per day? There are on an average 2 rides are booked per day per user. So there are 400 million rides, but not all the rides will be booked, right? So can we say that approximately 200 million, 33% drop? So we can say that on an average 600 million request rides will be booked, correct? And if 600 million rides will be booked, let's say in every single booking, you send the message to 3 different drivers. So can we say that total number of requests will be 1800 million here for the ride request? Now, out of this, only some of the drivers will actually accept the request, right? So only 600 million total requests will be accepted. Correct. Start ride, end ride will be 600 million, 400 million plus 400 million. Correct. So get destination ETA, that will keep on happening, right? So that will be, let's say this is a WebSocket connection, right? So once we have the WebSocket connection, can we say that on an average in the WebSocket connections, see, this is the one which is outside the WebSocket connections. Once you establish the WebSocket connection, then we are considering that as it is taking one host and port, and that's it. So on an average, can we say that maximum to maximum, because driver is online, we can say that driver is where is our driver? 70 million drivers, and let's say that they open this connections, let's say 50 times in a day or 100 times in a day, correct? So we have total number of WebSocket, so 70 million WebSocket connections. Drivers, each of them will open WebSocket connections 100 times a day. So can we say 70 million into 100 times? Simple. And here rider, can we say that this is 600 million? Fetch ride history will happen rarely, like 20% of the request. So can we say that this will be around 120? So we can say 100 million approximately. Case of WebSocket connections, because once you start the ride, then only this will happen. So 400 million for this. Make payment will be again like 400 million. Cancel ride, 20% of it. Let's say around 100 million requested, 25%. Add rating. Not all the users will add the rating, so 200 million the request for that. Here, this is 70 million into 100. Add rating. Not every driver will add 200 million. Cancel ride, we can say 100 million. This fetch ride history, this will happen 100 million times a day. So these are our estimations. So this will be what, 600 million plus 100 million plus
Prakhar,
400.
sorry,
Yeah.
Prakhar, so this is for 600 million, how this numbers, because we are saying for 200 million, two requests is coming. So that should be 400, right? Why 600?
Yeah. 400 requests are coming, are the total number of rides which are booked. But
Correct.
there will be more requests, right? Like we can consider that 30% of the requests will be dropped.
Okay.
That's why I'm taking, let's put 400 million plus 200 million, considering 30% of the requests.
So we thought that out of 400, we will be dropping out because assumptions over.
Yeah, we can say 100 million, 30% of the request or 25% of the requests are dropped. I mean, you don't assign a cap for that. That can happen, right? So that's why we are considering that. This will become what, around 1500 million approximately. And this is 1500 million. And this is what, 70 million into 100 I'm saying. So this will be the one where, okay, WebSocket connections, sorry, this will be 400 million into each user will actually open 10 times. This will become 4000 million and this will be 70,000 million. Sorry, this will be 7,000 million. So, I mean, most of these requests will be taken by the WebSocket connections itself, right? The rest all can be ignored. So can we say that approximately this 7,000 plus 4,000. So 15,000 million requests you're getting in one. So QPS. So can we say that around 15,000 million requests you're getting in one day? Correct. Now to handle 15,000 million requests per day, this will become what, 15,000 million divided by 10 to the power 5. This will become what? 150,000 million, 150,000 requests per second. You can clearly see that this is a huge volume which you have to handle in case of Uber. See, we are saying 15,000 million requests per day, and this will become divided by 10 to the power 5. So 10 to the power 6 divided by 10 to the power 5 will be what? 10, it will be 10. So this will become 150,000 requests per second. This is the volume which you have to handle in case of, sorry, I should shift it above. In case of Twitter, sorry, not Twitter, Uber design.
We didn't consider the peak load, that is 1.5, which were standard.
See, what I'm, yeah, that's correct. What I'm doing is I'm already considering this as a lot of requests, right? Here I'm saying that 100 times. So see, this will be what? This will be around 70 million. This will be around 4,000. So this will be around, 11,000 million. And rest are all are like 1,000 million. If you want to consider a peak, you can take a peak. So this will be, I mean, if you can multiply it by 1.2, 1.3, I think that should be good enough. Or 1.5 as well, that should be good enough. So it will become around 20,000 requests, 200,000 requests per second. That's correct. You're correct. So if you consider a peak load, see, generally this is across the geography, right? But if we really want to consider a peak load, then we can say that it will be approx 200,000 requests per second. This is the volume at which we are talking here. Okay. Any questions so far? Now let's come on to the main parts of the design. So we have figured out all these details.
Quick question,
Sorry, go ahead.
Prakhar.
Yeah, go ahead.
On the API rider WebSocket, right? So you said 400 million into 10. Can you repeat again why we chose that number 10?
Yeah, yeah. So see, because rider will book a ride, uh, and that same WebSocket connection won't be open forever, right? It could be possible that the same connection is getting closed and again you are reestablishing the connection. Correct. So for a driver will remain on the application way more time than the rider, right? So we are saying that on an average, let's say that the ride is of around, the total ride hours for the user is around, around 2 hours. Correct. 2 hours is too much actually. Let's say 51 hour. And if you're saying that we have a TTL of around 5 minutes to close the connection, then after 5 minutes the connection will be closed, right? So considering that, I've taken 10 times a WebSocket connection will be created for each of the users. For the driver, because driver will remain on the app for a longer time, I've taken 100. Correct. So here it was 1 hour. So here the driver will be for 10 hours on an average on the application. So that's why I'm taking 100 connections for that. Understood?
Makes sense. Thank you.
So these are the connections which we are doing. Now we have figured out all the details about these APIs tables. This is very important. Now let's move on to the main part where we'll talk about how all these are connected and how this is working. So let's talk about those things. Let's move on to that part. So let me start sharing my Miro board now.
One quick question. On
ahead.
the rider side, we said 400 into 10, right? 400 million
Yes.
into 10. So how did we get that
Yeah.
400 million?
Because we are having 2 rides per user, right? On an
Okay.
average.
Okay.
So 200 million users
Into 2
and
rides.
into 2 rides. Yeah. So total 400 million rides.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Let me increase the font size thickness a little bit. Okay. So now we are talking about high level design. Now, please look at this. This is very important. So we have 2 applications, right? So we have 2 clients. The first client is our rider app. The second client is our driver app. Correct. Both of these are 2 different applications. So both of these will have separate front-end services to handle and redirect the request. All the authentication and authorizations will be performed accordingly on the front-end services. Now, the WebSocket connection will also be opened here itself, or we can open. Let's come on to that later on. So these are communicating to front-end services. Now these front-end services will be communicating to some of the back-end services. So we have another load balancer layer. And this is our ride table, ride service. The front-end service will be communicating to this. We'll have riders service. And this front-end service will have the authentication authorizations to contact with this particular service. And we'll have a driver service. And only this particular front-end service will have the authentication authorization to communicate to this particular service. And then we have other 2 as well, like we have ratings and payments, which can be communicated by both of these. we have ratings and payments. Now, when the driver actually connects, so these are our standard HTTP calls. We'll have a load balancer layer again. Here we'll have the DB instances. What happened? Sorry. We'll have the database instances. With me so far? Now let's talk about the, so as soon as the driver logs in, these are the some of the HTTP standard HTTP calls which driver can make, rider can make, and we are talking to the databases. Now, as soon as the driver connects with the front end service, these are the HTTP calls. We'll have to open, there will be WebSocket connections. So let's say we open a WebSocket connection with the front end service here for the driver. These are my WebSockets, okay? And there will be some WebSockets here as well. Correct. Now, let's say the driver is actually, populating their current location, correct? So the way it will work is driver will actually keep on passing there whenever driver is actually, present. Driver will keep on passing their latitude and longitude location to the front end service, and front end service will maintain a distributed cache, some kind of a distributed cache. Which will store the driver ID, their lat long, and we can say that availability, whether they are available or not. Correct. So we are maintaining this information as a part of this cache, and this can be we can keep on updating these details, correct, on the real-time basis. The lat long will keep on changing. Availability might change for the same driver. Coming on to the rider. Now let's say rider is booking a ride. So rider is looking for a particular location. So we will have a lat long. Front-end service will get the lat long of the rider as well. Once the front-end service get a lat long, then there will be some service. Can we call it as that? Cab assigning service. What it will do is it will get the lat long of this particular driver. It will go and check from the distributed cache. It will go and check which drivers are available and what is the lat long of those drivers. So we'll have to find the nearby drivers. Now what we'll do is here there will be some in between. We'll use the Google APIs or some kind of APIs. And I'll tell you how exactly we are finding that. So somehow we figured out that these are the nearby drivers. This assigning service will actually make sure that it sends. So once we get the list of drivers, it will make sure that, and it will send a message to this front end service saying that, these are the drivers to which you have to send the request. So we have send request. So send request, this for the ride. Once one of the driver accept, this API will decide which driver, if there is some consistency issue, this API will select one of the driver and acknowledge that your ride has been accepted, and the same driver that will be assigned to this, and in the front end service, you will know that we'll send the notification to the driver saying that this is the driver assigned. And as soon as the driver is assigned, a ride will be created through the ride service. These details will be stored as a part of your database. You can maintain another distributed cache where you can say that these are the ongoing rides, where you can mention that, this is the ride ID, this is the driver ID, and this is the rider ID. And as soon as the cab is assigned, basically this information will be stored. The availability of the driver will be changed, and you're still getting the lat long of the driver, which can be used. So this distributed cache can be used to see the lat long. So this WebSocket will keep populating changing the lat long, and this front end service will now keep on, because it knows that this is the driver ID for which I have to fetch the details. It will keep fetching the details from the lat long and keep sending the details to the rider. Any questions on this part so far? We still need to figure out how did we assign the cab. I mean, how did we find the nearby drivers? That is something which I'm coming on to. But apart from that, do you have any questions here? Any one of you?
So, Prakar, the front end services which you are referring to is the same which the APIs which we are talking about, right? Is that the one we're talking, or the right side?
Yes, exactly. So those are the APIs which we are talking about because these are the sockets. Now see, these are the backend services, right? So this will contain all the APIs which are related to rider, all the APIs which are related to writing, all the APIs which are related to ride. So login registration will come here. Login registration will come here for the driver, for the rider. Rating API will come here, like add rating, remove rating, add review, all those rating related. Make payment API will come here. In the right service, so basically front end service will talk to these services, right? So we have listed down the APIs which will be at the front end service layer. Now in the right service, you will have book ride, cancel ride. These are simple HTTP calls after that. Here only we have the WebSocket connections. Is that clear to everyone? So generally we have to create, I mean, when we write the API, list down all the APIs, these are the APIs which we are listing down. If you want, you can list down these APIs as well, but more or less they'll remain same only. It's just that now you're distributing these API to specific services, backend services.
I got a little confused there, Prakar. So front end services is the one with the WebSocket one which we are making it. That's what we are talking about. And
WebSockets and all the other APIs which you have listed down.
Okay.
The book ride, cancel ride. See, book ride APIs, front end service. So you have to have API till the end, right? So there is book service, which client will call. Book ride service, book ride API client will call, which will be part of the front end service. Now this front end service will figure out where is the ride service. So for that ride service, you'll have a book ride API again. So that will be passed as a part. I mean, that front end service will call book ride API for the front end, for the back end service, ride service. Okay.
Can you re-explain that part, please? Front end service and back end service. Say, for example, if a rider
Let me explain. Give me a second. So the APIs which we are writing here, see, there are a bunch of API, right? Book ride, fetch ride history. Then we have make payment, cancel ride, add rating. These are all the APIs which we have for the rider. So this rider is communicating to our front end service through all these APIs. That part is clear to everyone, or there is any confusion? So these are the API present in the front end service. Similarly, for the driver, these are the API present in the front end service. Correct. Now see, once you are in the front end service, book ride, you have to book a ride, correct? And generally, if you have remembered my previous sessions, what we say is all the heavy lifting, orchestration is done on the front end service. All the business logic is present on the back end service, correct? And we are using the microservice architecture, correct? Now see, book ride API of the front end service should be able to book a ride, correct? So we'll do the authentication authorization at the front end layer. Finally, we have to book a ride, correct? So we should call some backend service to do that, correct? So now let's say if you want to get the ride details, or if you want to book a ride, there should be some specific service which should do that part. Or if you want to fetch the user details, then we should call the user service for that. So what we have is right now, let's say we have let's say login or get rider information. Let's say we have that particular API. So that API will be exposed on the front end service. Now front end service will figure out which is the right service to call, which is the right API to call to get the details on the backend. So it will figure out that it's a rider service or the user service to which we have to make a call. And in the user service app, you can have another API called get ride details, which will go and fetch the ride details. Correct. Let's take another example. Orchestration at a front end service level, we want to fetch all the ride history and the rider information. Let's say we have some API, right? Get rider details and rider history. Let's say we have some API like that. This will be called from the client to the front end service. Front end service will call user service to get the rider details. Front end service will call the ride service to get all the history of the rides. It will combine the results and it will return back to the client. So whenever we list down the APIs, generally we list down the APIs for the front-end service. Now these API will be further distributed in the microservice architecture. Like we are following a microservice architecture. So these are the APIs which I've listed down for the front-end service. These APIs will be further distributed into, so those will be separate APIs, but will be very similar APIs, will be further distributed into each of the small services. I'll give you an example, another example. So let's say if you are creating on an Amazon e-commerce, you'll have create order and make payment. Let's say this is our API. So this API will be in the front-end service. This will call the order service to create an order. It will call a payment once the order has been created successfully. It will call payment service to make a payment. So these are two different services, right? Now, payment service can be used in Amazon e-commerce as well as Amazon Web Services to make a payment, as well as Amazon, Amazon Prime as well to make a payment. But the front-end service in the Amazon e-commerce will be what? Create order and make payment. On the Prime, it can be simply a make payment API. On the Amazon Web Services, it can be allocate resources and make payment, something like that. Now, in case of web services, it will call some other service which will take care of allocating the resources, and based on that, it will give you the cost and you'll make a payment. So make payment API in the payment service is common across 3 different platforms because we are using the microservice architecture. Now, for each of these 3 platforms, the front-end services will be different. So each of these front-end services can call any of these APIs which are listed down in the microservice architecture. Now you won't call create order service at all from the Prime Videos or Amazon Web Services, right? AWS. You'll call only from the Amazon e-commerce, but payment can be done from Amazon e-commerce, from the web services, from the Prime Videos as well. So that's why we have a microservice architecture, and then we have a separate front-end service layers. And whenever we talk about the APIs, we'll list down all the APIs which are required at the front-end service layer, and let each of the services have their separate APIs. If your interviewer asks for it, you can always figure out what are those APIs. Is that clear to everyone, or you still have any confusion or questions here? Yes, no?
But
I think that's great, but
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
yeah, I think that's great, but then the concept is a little new. I mean, can we find something online to say that that's the typical architecture wherein a front-end service will do much of the orchestration, but actually they rely on the backend services, just so that we kind of that understanding gets really solid in that.
Got it. So I'll tell you what. See, that's what we are following all the above questions. So let me start sharing. I don't know, like I was not sure if that was a confusion for all of you earlier as well. So if you look at our previous designs as well, right? This is for what? This is for Messenger, right? This is your conversation service. These are user service. These are web servers. So here all WebSockets are still connected here. This is doing all the orchestration. So if you want to fetch all the friends list and their messages, the way it works is it will call the user service, get all the friends or the friends for you, and then call the conversation service to get the latest messages and render the response and return back to the client. Same thing is happening here as well. Here we've talked about this, right? Web servers will figure out whether the call should be made to the user service or the event service. If there is a request called create event, that will go to the event service. It will be inserting a message in the message queue. Queue receiver will get the message event. It will fetch based on the event. It will fetch the event details. Once it fetch the event details, it will call the user service to get the user emails, who are the invitees as the part of the event, because you are storing the user ID here, right? So we need to know their emails. It will get the email by calling the user service, fetch those details, send the email. So see, orchestration is always done by the web servers. It is yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So I think these service calls, generally what we do is about the buttons which we click, right? If I'm trying to book a cab, right? So
yeah,
there would be a REST call which will go and will hit that right service. So this
not right service. It will call the front end service. Front end service will understand it's a request which is coming for the right. Then it will call some backend service. The reason for using the microservice architecture is you can use the monolith. So the answer, Okay, the solution which you're mentioning is the monolithic servers. You won't be able to reuse the functionalities in those cases.
Correct.
Here I'm using the reusing the functionalities. Let's say tomorrow okay, let me give you another example. So let's say tomorrow you plan to have Uber Eats as another service, correct? Now see, you can't use the ride service for the Uber Eats for sure. You can't use cab assigning service for the Uber Eats. You can't use rating for that. But the payments or the rider or the driver. Now see, here there is no driver is not there for the Uber Eats, but there is a rider, right? So if you could have called this as a user service, we could have used this service. I mean, you can use the same account details for on the Uber Eats as well as on the Uber Ride app, and you can use the same payment information which you are. Let's say you have added bunch of payment information. Let's say there is another API called add payment or add card details or add payment methods. That is part of the payment service. This payment service and this ride service, correct? Rider service, not the ride service, or the user service, can be shared across two different applications. If you combine all these in a single monolithic server, then it becomes a problem for you, because you can't use the functionalities, the common functionalities which are provided by some of these services for the other systems. Also, it is much more easier to push the code, keep it independent. Separate team can work on each of these services. Like there is a separate team which will be working on the ride service. There will be a separate team which will be handling the user service. There will be a separate team which will be handling the driver service. And these binaries are independent of each other. These are separate services altogether. So you can push the code independently of each other. You don't need to check. So when you're pushing the code for ride service, you don't need to take care of checking all the integration test, unit test for the other services which are part of your system, because this code is independent from this code. When you have the monolithic service, you need to make sure that the complete binaries to push together. It becomes difficult to maintain the system, overall system, and overall services. And that's why we prefer microservice architecture. Uber is one of the few services which actually started with the microservice architecture. They started the monolithic servers, and then later on they shifted to microservice architecture, because they were facing a lot of issues when they were trying to scale things. So it becomes easier to scale things when you have separate services, because you can do the resource allocation accordingly. You don't need to, if you know that there will be a lot of load on the right service, you'll allocate more resources for that particular service. Sorry, yeah,
I don't know.
questions.
So we get that. This is like similar to the OSGI concept, or the way Eclipse has got different modules built up, and we can deploy each of them separately.
Exactly. It's more on a system level. That is more on a that is more on a code level. Here it is more on a system level. But yeah, your concept, you're understanding it correctly.
Yeah, but sorry. Yeah. The front end services, like that's something which is confusing, and I'm sure maybe I have not seen that very practically. That means I'm not able to get that, because web servers doesn't have that much brain to operate, right? So we were understanding that okay, the web service would be coming in, and that would be routed to it. But this front end,
So that is what that is what this service is doing, right? It doesn't have any brain. It doesn't contain any business logic. They are just routing the request to the important services. That's it.
But Prakhar, you are aggregating the results as well, right? In the front end services.
What is the problem with that? It's fairly simple, right? You're calling two different APIs. You need to merge the results. You return back to the client.
So if I consider the rider, let's take an example of rider, UI, and driver. Then if I take that as an example, I have wrote it in the React JS UI rider part. And then when you are invoking some service, this front end service, so front end service would be written in what? I mean,
it can be in any language. It can be in Java, C++.
So it can be, when you're saying front end service, it would be some kind of Spring Boot application which might be invoking the another microservices, right? Say for example,
these
rider.
are independent services. These are not invoking. These are just making call, API call. These are not invoking. I mean, you can say it's invoking, but these are not bringing up these services. These are just calling these service. So front end service.
From the React, from the driver part, you might be invoking, there might be some kind of a WebSocket connection maintained to the front end services, right? And that is what you are
correct. So this is from the client to the front end service. Now front end service knows that I'm getting the request for this particular message or this particular type. I can call this API to get the details. What is an issue with that? It's a very standard pattern which is followed these days. I'm trying to understand like what exactly is the problem if we have. Consider it as a simple thing, no? Like let's say one service is calling multiple services to get the data. That you might be doing, right? It's just that we are calling it as a front-end service,
It's
which is taking care of.
kind of a facade you are saying. It's a kind of a facade
Yeah,
pattern.
you can call it at facade pattern, but I don't want to go onto the pattern right now because that might confuse you more. See, it's a very simple thing, right? You have one service, that service is making call to different services, and that service is not containing the business logic. It is giving the responsibility of to each of the other services to perform whatever heavy lifting or whatever business logic they want to perform, do all the validations, give me the results, I'll aggregate these results, I'll return back to the client. That's it. You might have seen, you know, if you want to fetch the details from two different services, you do that. It's just that the front-end service doesn't contain any business logic of like CAP assigning business logic won't be the front-end service. You have created a separate service to do that work for you.
One more question from my side.
Go ahead.
When you say that rider service and you said payment service, there's a driver, many services are there. Now, are we maintaining a monolithic database of that particular or are we maintaining the separate database for individual microservices? Say, for example, rider service would be just maintaining the rider related tables, whatever we are maintaining, and then payment would be just maintaining those kind of tables just in a separate database.
So that is again dependent on you. These are again independent things, right? So this is a second layer is independent of the third layer. Now, if you can maintain it, if you know that you can store everything in a single database, go ahead with that. You will have to do the sharding eventually, so you might end up using. So for that, you need to see my previous sessions where I've talked about the sharding and the application.
I went through your sharding sessions.
So you can keep it in the single database, or you can create the multiple database. That's a separate layer altogether again, right?
No, but on what basis you decide whether you go for you're using a microservice architecture? On what basis, or what are the parameters using which you decide that whether you want to go for one particular database or you have to separate out the database?
Based on the space, based on the permissions, based on if you know that there's each team should handle only one database, you should have only one specific permissions for those database, you end up creating a separate databases for the same.
But in that particular case, for example, if there is some issue in between the particular service calls you're making, say for example, front-end service call, you're making one call to rider service, you're making one call to the payment service, and then in one of the call fails, then it would be you have to update both the database, right? And
that's correct. So you have to see. So that's the challenge, right? So if you're creating a single, so anyways, if you have the microservice architecture, if you're calling from the front-end service, you can't have the transactions. You can have transactions only when you are talking about from a particular service, you can have a transaction. Now, do you really have a use case to do that? First, think about it. Usually you won't have that use case. You won't update two data. I mean, there will be rarely use cases where you'll update the two database. And then in that case, you should expose a separate service altogether, which will handle the transactions, or which will have the tables present in the same database and handling the transactions for that. Why would that be a case? Think about it. Generally, that's a get API we are talking about. If it's a get API, you actually fail those requests. If it's a write update APIs, then you try to keep it as a part of the same database because you want to pass the transaction in both the databases. Not the databases, both the tables I'm saying. Sorry, not the database. It should be a single database in that case. Okay. So, I mean, see, these are very independent things. You're trying to mix multiple things at the same time. Third layer is independent of the second layer. All the tables which are belonging to write should be part of one particular database. That should be independent from the user table. That should be independent from the writer table. If there are cases where you have to update across multiple databases, then you are actually doing something incorrectly. I'm not saying that two databases can't be part of the same table. Two tables can't be part of the same database. For example, payment in the payments, let's say you have created some database which is related to payments. For that, you will have a table where you can have, you're storing all the payment methods, you're also storing all the transactions. That can be part of the same database, which is handling all the transaction related thing, all the payment related things. But again, these two tables are also independent in itself. So you need to figure out what exactly has to be clubbed together, what has to be separated out. And that's what we are trying to do with the help of microservice architecture. These are independent things. User should not be updated with driver, driver should not be updated with the user. Ride should be updated together. Once the ride is completed, then only you will do the rating. Once the ride is completed, then only you will make a payment. Are you getting my point? Why these are independent?
Yeah.
And you can always handle it. So if you're talking about the failures, you can always create a messaging queues to handle and update. If something fails, then you can do it after, you can retry and you can update something. But again, there will be then inconsistency in the data in that case. Not exactly inconsistency, but it won't be, there might be some delay in the updates. Are you okay to afford that? If it is, yes, then you can do that as well. So there are multiple solutions to the same problem. And you know, if you'll, that is one of the biggest problem with the microservice architecture. If you have to update two details in a single transaction, then it becomes difficult. That's a challenge with the microservice architecture, and that's where you know, you need to decide whether you need to use a monolithic server on the microservice architecture. That's a challenge with the microservice architecture, and you can't.
Yes.
But
You're saying
sorry.
multiple database. I mean, in that case.
Correct. I mean, you can't pass the transactions, even if it's a single database, right? And if you are having a front-end service, if you are calling two different services, you can't pass the transaction from the front-end service. See, we are going at a code level details, and it will be difficult for everyone to understand. Let's keep it on a very high level. What I'm trying to say is you can't pass the transaction from the front-end service. It will be from the backend service, and you're calling the methods of the databases, CRUD operations. From there, you can create the transactions. So even if it's a part of the same database and front-end service is calling two different services, you can't pass the transaction at all. Irrespective of whether it's part of the same database or the different, if it's a different database, then you can't. If it's the same database and you're making a call from the front-end service, then also you can't maintain the transactions. So that's a challenge with the front-end, sorry, that's a challenge with the microservice architecture. But do you really need that? I mean, do you really need to do multiple operations in the same transaction? Maybe not. So you need to figure out which things can be clubbed together, which can be separated out. And that is the, you know, that is the biggest challenge to figure out in the microservice architecture. Like things which are kept together should be, you need to make sure that these are actually, you know, linked with each other, and the things which are separated out should be independent of each other. Okay, I think we are already running out of time. Someone will take over my meeting. Let's quickly talk about, we'll continue with some of these things tomorrow as well.
Quick question, Prakash.
Go
So maybe
ahead.
not for now, but sometime later, can you? So you talked about the problem with this microservices architecture, right? Wherein if you need to make
I'll
different
explain you.
transactions.
I'll explain you tomorrow. I'll explain
Okay,
you
that
tomorrow.
sounds good. Just wanted to make sure we.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll explain it to you tomorrow itself, like what is the challenge which you'll get, which you won't get in the monolithic servers and which you'll get in the microservice architecture. We'll talk about that tomorrow itself. Is it okay if I